I hadn't planned on coming home for the weekend. My last-minute decision was mostly fueled by a canceled group project and an overwhelming need to escape campus for a couple of days. The idea of sleeping in my own bed, even if it still had the same wrinkled Star Wars sheets from high school, suddenly felt like the only thing that made sense. When I pulled into the driveway just after 6, the sun was already starting to dip. The house looked exactly the same. White shutters, small porch, potted flowers my mom always kept alive somehow. But something felt different the moment I stepped inside. The air was cooler than I expected. The scent of lavender and something citrusy floated through the hallway, familiar and not. My mom was gone, of course, off at some teachers' conference all weekend. But she hadn't mentioned that someone else would be staying over. "Hey there," a voice said from the kitchen. I turned, and there she was, Claire, Mom's best friend. I hadn't seen her in months. Last I heard, she was helping take care of her dad after his surgery across the state. But now she stood barefoot on the kitchen tiles, wearing a soft beige sweater and leggings, her hair tied up in a loose bun, a wooden spoon in her hand. She smiled. "Didn't expect you home." "I didn't expect anyone to be here," I said, dropping my backpack by the stairs. She laughed, warm and quiet. "Your mom offered me the house for a few days. I needed a break from mine." "Right?" I said, suddenly aware of how I was standing. "It's good to see you." "You too," she said, giving me that look I remembered, soft, kind, just a touch unreadable. "There's leftover risotto on the stove if you're hungry." We ate at the kitchen island, under the warm hum of the hanging light. The food was good, lemony, creamy, and we talked like old friends catching up. She asked about school, about my internship, and I asked about her painting. She always used to sketch in her notebooks during dinner when I was younger. She still did, apparently. Everything about the night felt normal, except it wasn't, because I couldn't stop noticing the way she tucked her leg up on the stool beside her, or how she tilted her head when she laughed, or how her voice dropped slightly when she asked if I'd been sleeping well lately. It wasn't anything. Not really. But it wasn't nothing either. After dinner, I offered to help clean up, but she waved me off. "Go relax. I've got this." So I wandered upstairs, dropped my things in my room, and laid back on the bed. The ceiling fan spun slowly above me, clicking softly. I let my eyes drift shut for a few minutes. I must have dozed off because when I opened them, the hallway outside was darker. The house was quiet, too quiet. I headed down the stairs, meaning to grab some water. But halfway through the hallway, I noticed the laundry room light was on. The door was half closed. The quiet hum of the washer ran in the background, steady and rhythmic. Then I heard her voice. Soft. "Close. You're up." She stepped into view before I could answer. She had changed, now in a loose gray t-shirt that dipped slightly at the shoulder, revealing a hint of collarbone, and soft cotton shorts. She held a small laundry basket in one arm, a bottle of detergent in the other. "I was just about to switch loads," she said casually. "Come here. I could use an extra hand." I hesitated for half a second before stepping forward. The laundry room was small, narrow. Washer, dryer, wall shelves with cleaning stuff. Warm air and the faint scent of clean fabric and citrus detergent wrapped around us like steam. She handed me a bundle of damp towels. "Can you toss these in the dryer?" I did. She moved past me, barely brushing my shoulder. Her arm grazed mine, skin on skin. It wasn't dramatic, but it wasn't casual either. Not with the way her body stayed just a second too close as she leaned toward the machine, adjusting a setting. I turned to leave, the excuse already forming in my head. But then I felt her hand on my wrist. Just fingers, just a touch. And then she pulled me gently, firmly, back into the room, and with a swift motion, closed the door behind us. The soft click of the latch echoed louder than it should have. I looked at her. She was calm. She leaned in just a little, close enough that I could smell the faint scent of her skin, something floral and warm, close enough that her breath brushed my jaw. Then she whispered, "Keep quiet." Not a question, not a joke, just that. 2 words. Her eyes searched mine for a beat that felt like forever. And then she turned back to the dryer, like nothing had happened at all. I stood there, stunned, unsure if I was supposed to move, unsure what had just shifted, but knowing without a doubt that something had. I didn't move at first. I stood in the soft hum of the laundry room, the air thick with warm moisture and unsaid things. My hand still tingled from where she had touched it. Just a moment ago, I had been ready to leave, to escape the closeness, the heat, and then she'd pulled me back. "Keep quiet." Those words echoed in my head like a bell. She crouched in front of the dryer, her back to me now, moving with the same graceful ease I remembered from years ago. She was stacking folded towels into a basket, calm and unhurried, as if the last 10 seconds hadn't completely scrambled my internal compass. I swallowed, unsure what to do with my hands, my breath, my racing thoughts. Then she spoke again, so casually it almost felt like she was testing me. "Do you mind checking if there's another load upstairs?" she asked, not looking at me. "I think I left a pile on the chair in the guest room." "Sure," I said, my voice lower than usual. The hallway felt colder than the laundry room, and quieter. Every sound, each creak of the floorboard, each soft step, felt louder in comparison. I moved automatically, hands shaky, heart pounding, and returned with the bundle of clothes a minute later. She was still there, now leaning against the counter, arms crossed over her chest, the neckline of her shirt loose enough to suggest she'd changed quickly. She looked up at me as I entered. "Thanks," she said simply, taking the pile from my hands. She didn't step back. Neither did I. We were standing too close again. "You okay?" she asked, the corners of her mouth lifting, almost like she already knew the answer. "Yeah," I said, even though I wasn't sure that was true. The hum of the washer picked up again, louder now. She stepped past me, brushing my shoulder again. It wasn't an accident. Not this time. She dropped the clothes in the washer, added detergent, then closed the lid with a soft click. I thought she might open the door, say goodnight, walk away. But she didn't. She stayed, her back still to me, one hand resting on the lid of the machine. She let out a quiet sigh. "You always used to be so quiet," she said. I blinked. "What?" She turned, her eyes meeting mine. "When you were younger. Even back then, I noticed. You watched everything, said little, but you noticed things." I shifted my weight, unsure where she was going with this. "And now?" I asked carefully. She smiled, calm, a little sad. "Now I think you still watch everything. But you're not a kid anymore." Something about the way she said it made my chest tighten. I looked down, then back at her. "I didn't mean to make it weird earlier," I said, not entirely sure what I was apologizing for. She raised an eyebrow. "You didn't." I hesitated. "Then why did you say that?" A pause. She walked slowly to the cabinet on the left wall, pulled down a box of dryer sheets, and tossed one into the machine. The scent of lavender filled the small room again. She moved with deliberate calm, like she was thinking through every motion. "Because sometimes silence says more than it should," she said finally. "And I didn't want you to mistake it." "Mistake what?" She closed the dryer, pressed the button. The machine started its low rumble. She turned to me fully now. The room was quiet except for the dryer and the faint beat of my heart in my ears. I see you, she said. And I know you see me. It wasn't flirtation. It wasn't coy. It was honest. I didn't know how to respond. The last 24 hours had already stretched my understanding of boundaries, and now they were being redrawn again by her. I didn't mean to stare, I said. Earlier, she took a slow step toward me. You weren't staring. You were thinking. Another step. And you're still thinking, she added, almost playfully, though there was something behind it, something measured, careful. Now she was close enough that I could smell the detergent on her shirt, feel the warmth radiating off her skin. You ever wonder why your mom trusts me so much? She asked suddenly. I blinked. What? She says I'm the stable one, the calm one, the one who always does the right thing. You are. Her gaze locked on mine. Am I? My breath hitched. Her fingers brushed my arm again, like a whisper across skin. Then she stepped back. The distance returned like a rush of cold air. I should get ready for bed, she said simply, like the past 5 minutes hadn't happened. I nodded slowly. Yeah, me too. She reached for the light switch but didn't flip it right away. I meant what I said, she added softly. Keep quiet. Then the room went dark. I stood there for a moment longer after she left, my mind a spinning blur of questions, heat, and something else I couldn't quite name. I could still feel her presence in the air, the scent of lavender on my shirt, the pressure of her voice in my ear. Keep quiet. It wasn't a warning. It was an invitation, and I wasn't sure whether I was terrified or ready to answer it. I didn't go back to sleep that night. Not really. I lay in bed for hours, my mind looping through every detail. The weight of her hand on my wrist, the closeness of her voice, the stillness before she turned off the light and left me standing there like I'd walked into a different reality. Keep quiet. Played on repeat. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, that she was just being playful, that maybe I'd misunderstood the tone, the timing, the meaning behind everything. But the way she'd looked at me said otherwise. And the way my chest tightened every time I replayed the moment told me I wasn't imagining it. At some point, I dozed off from sheer exhaustion, but when I opened my eyes, the sun was already slanting in through the blinds. The morning light felt too bright, too clean, like it didn't belong in the same house as last night. Downstairs, the kitchen smelled like cinnamon and coffee. I patted in slowly, unsure of what I'd find. Claire was at the stove, hair still damp from the shower, wearing a long burgundy sweater and black leggings. She moved with quiet ease, pouring batter into a pan, flipping something on the skillet. She didn't look surprised to see me, just gave me a simple, neutral smile. Morning, she said, cheerful, easy. Morning, I echoed, grabbing a mug from the rack. She slid a plate across the island. Pancakes, sliced bananas, maple syrup already on the side. I stared at the food for a second before sitting down. Everything felt normal. Too normal. Sleep okay? She asked without looking at me. I hesitated. Yeah. She nodded like she believed me, or like she didn't care either way. We ate in silence for a few minutes, the only sounds the scrape of forks and the gentle simmer from the stove. Then she said, without turning around, "You left the laundry light on." My grip on the fork tightened. "Sorry," I said. "It's fine," she replied, calm, relaxed. "Just figured I'd mention it." Another beat. Then she asked, "You have plans today?" I shook my head. "No, just catching up on emails and stuff." She poured herself more coffee, then leaned back against the counter, cradling the mug with both hands. "Well, if you're bored," she said, "I could use help folding the linens in the guest room." "Sure," I said too quickly. "I mean, yeah, of course." She smiled, not mocking but knowing. After breakfast, then. She disappeared into the hallway while I cleaned the dishes, my hands moving on autopilot. My thoughts weren't on pancakes or coffee or dishes. They were on the quiet pauses between her words, the weight of her tone, the way she never once mentioned what happened last night, but also never acted like it hadn't happened either. 15 minutes later, I knocked on the guest room door. "Come in," she called. The bed was stripped, sheets and pillowcases stacked in piles. Claire stood near the window, sunlight filtering across her shoulders, casting soft shadows on the floor. She turned when I entered, holding a fitted sheet in both hands. "Grab a corner?" she asked. We moved in sync, folding the linens carefully, working wordlessly, side by side. It should have felt ordinary. Didn't. Every time our fingers brushed, something flickered beneath the surface. She didn't pull away. Neither did I. Her arm grazed mine as she reached for a blanket. Her hip brushed my side when we turned to pick up a stack of towels. When we finally sat on the edge of the bed to fold pillowcases, I could feel her warmth next to me, her thigh barely touching mine. "Do you remember?" she said suddenly. "When you were 12 and tried to carry the laundry basket down the stairs and fell backwards?" I laughed, caught off guard. "Yeah. I thought I cracked my spine in half. You cried. You told me not to tell my mom." She smiled into the pillowcase in her lap. "I didn't want her to panic. I thought you were being cool, like covering for me." "I was," she said, glancing sideways. "I always looked out for you." The room grew quiet again, the kind of quiet that stretched, not because there was nothing to say, but because what needed to be said couldn't come out so easily. Then she added softly, "It's strange seeing you like this, all grown up." My throat tightened. I looked at her. "You're different too." Her lips curved slightly. "Am I?" "Yeah. I mean, you always seemed untouchable. Like someone who floated above everything." She turned toward me, studying my face. "And now you feel real." A long pause. Then she looked down, smoothing the folded pillowcase with her palm. "I think I liked being untouchable," she said. "It made things simple." "They're not simple anymore," I said, without really meaning to. She looked up again, slowly. "No," she agreed. "They're not." The doorbell rang suddenly from downstairs, sharp and unexpected. She exhaled, setting the pillowcase aside. "Probably the Amazon guy," she said, rising to her feet. "I ordered a new drying rack." "Right?" I said, still stuck in the last 30 seconds. She paused at the doorway and looked back. "I'll be right back." When she was gone, I sat still, fingers gripping the fabric in my lap, heart pounding in my chest. There was nothing overt in what we'd said. No declarations, no confessions. But everything about it was loaded, carefully wrapped in years of memory, habit, and something new that neither of us had the courage to name yet. And beneath it all, the same message kept echoing in my head. Keep quiet, not out of fear, but because some things are louder in silence. The day moved in slow motion after that. I tried to distract myself with small tasks, answering emails, reorganizing my backpack, pretending to scroll through my phone, but none of it stuck. My thoughts kept drifting back to the guest room, to the warmth of her leg against mine, to the way she said, "You're all grown up," like it meant something more than age. By evening, the air had cooled slightly. The summer heat gave way to a breeze that whispered through the open windows. The house smelled faintly of fresh laundry and something sweeter, maybe the candle she'd lit in the hallway. She was in the living room when I came downstairs, curled up on the couch, reading. A soft jazz record played in the background, the sound warm and low, like a heartbeat behind her words. She didn't look up when I entered. "Dinner's in the fridge," she said gently. "I made pasta." "Thanks," I said, even though I wasn't hungry. I poured myself a glass of water, took a few sips, then wandered the house aimlessly, pretending to look for something I'd misplaced. I wasn't. I was waiting. For what, I wasn't sure. But then I heard it. The low rumble of the washing machine starting again. The light in the hallway flicked on. And I knew. I walked toward the laundry room slowly, the way you might approach a sleeping animal or a cliff edge, aware of the weight in your chest, but moving forward anyway. The door was ajar. I pushed it open. She was there, standing in front of the washer, barefoot, sleeves rolled up, loading the last of the clothes. The small overhead light cast a soft glow across her features. She didn't startle when I entered. She didn't even turn around. I figured you'd come, she said, almost to herself. I swallowed. Why? She glanced over her shoulder. Because you're still thinking. She closed the washer lid and finally faced me. The silence stretched, like it had so many times before. But this time it didn't feel like avoidance. Felt like permission. I didn't know what to say, I admitted. You weren't supposed to, she replied, voice low. That's why I said, keep quiet. She leaned back against the counter, arms crossed, the hem of her long t-shirt brushing her thighs. Her eyes were calm, but alert, watching. I stepped farther into the room, letting the door fall nearly shut behind me. I thought maybe I imagined it, I said, that I misread everything. You didn't. A beat. She looked at the floor, then back up at me. It's hard to explain something that isn't supposed to happen. I stood across from her, close but not too close. You don't have to explain anything. Her eyebrows lifted slightly, as if surprised. But then she nodded like she understood. That's why I trust you, she said. You don't push. Another silence, deeper this time. You remember when I told you I liked how quiet you were? She asked. I nodded. It wasn't because you didn't speak, she continued. It was because you saw things, felt them, gave space for them. She took a step closer, and suddenly the distance between us wasn't distance at all. It was breath, heat, energy suspended in the narrow space of the laundry room. Her voice dropped lower. I felt eyes on me before, but with you, it never felt wrong. My chest tightened. It didn't feel wrong for me either. Her gaze flicked toward the door, then back to me. If we talk about it, she whispered, it becomes real. I think it already is. A quiet breath left her lips. Then promise me something. Anything. Her eyes searched mine. Don't ruin it with questions. I won't. She nodded slowly, as if sealing an invisible contract between us. I didn't reach for her. She didn't reach for me. But something passed between us, stronger than touch, louder than words. She turned and opened the dryer, pulling out warm towels one by one, folding them gently, methodically. I stepped beside her, wordless, and helped. The two of us moved in rhythm, side by side, like we'd done this 100 times. But now every motion was soaked in awareness. Every shift of fabric, every passing glance, every quiet breath between folds. It all meant something more. And then came the moment. She handed me the last towel, our fingers brushing, neither of us moving away. I looked at her. She looked at me. Then she leaned in. Not all the way, not a kiss, not a touch. Just close enough for her lips to be near my ear. And she whispered it again. Soft, steady, deliberate. Keep quiet. It wasn't a warning this time. It was a confirmation of what we were, of what we weren't saying, of what had already happened somewhere in the silence between our first glance and this one. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. We stood like that for a long moment, the hum of the dryer slowing, the weight of everything we weren't allowed to say settling into the quiet. And when I finally turned to leave, I felt her eyes follow me, not with fear or doubt or shame, but with certainty. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't confusion. This was the kind of secret that didn't ask to be spoken. And I would keep it, just like she asked.